to Kansas, gateway to Oz. Under the rainbow, this is where it was. Hollyhocks and red ripe tomatoes, hand-churned homemade ice cream. Let me tell you, Kansas is more than tornadoes. It's the best part of Dorothy's dream.
Today on Around Kansas, we start with our wildlife segment about spring babies and how a mother deer protects its fawns. Next, we'll take a little journey to Teter Rock, then we'll have a poem from Ron Wilson, and we'll end with a look at the history of the cowboy boot and its relation to Kansas. Stay with us.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com. This segment brought to you by Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center. Your stem cells, your health, your life.
Good morning and welcome to Around Kansas. I'm Deb Goodrich and it's great to have you with us this morning. I am at Fort Wallace Museum, but this is actually the old Pond Creek Stagecoach Station. This year marks the 150th anniversary of the arrival of the railroad to western Kansas. So, of course, 1869 was the Transcontinental Railroad. The Kansas Pacific right here was a big piece of that, and arguably maybe even the first link, or the first, how would you phrase this? Something about the actual first Transcontinental Railroad, maybe this route and not the one a little farther north. I know you've all heard of Promontory Point, Utah, and where the Golden Spike was driven 150 years ago this summer. Well, you know, we had a few spikes driven here too, and it's a pretty amazing story. This was the stage station at Pond Creek, established in 1865 on the Smoky Hill Trail. And of course, Fort Wallace owes its existence to this stage station. The first soldiers were camped near this station to protect the traffic on the Smoky Hill, mostly Butterfield's Overland Dispatch, and that evolved into Fort Wallace. So, yeah, a big piece of our story. We're real excited because this is the only surviving BOD station. There were two, and I think the other one that was in Chapman, I believe, was destroyed by a tornado, unfortunately, a couple of years ago. So we have the only surviving BOD station, and we're pretty proud of that. It's a pretty awesome artifact in its own right. So, well, folks, just had Mother's Day, got so many other things coming up. I hope you all had a wonderful one. And before Mother's Day, I didn't get to, I just didn't have the time and, presence of mind mostly to plan anything. And being a mother myself and in constant contact with my children, it took me a while. But I would like to do a little salute on our show to mothers today. So watch for that coming up next. We are, springtime in Kansas. I guess it's finally arrived. Man, it has been a struggle. But as we have talked so often of lately, the window of opportunity to do things in Kansas is just a few months when you can count on not great weather, but at least not freezing temperatures or, some acceptable weather. Let's put it like that. Some days are glorious, some days not so glorious. So it seems all of our events are crammed into these few weeks of summer, late spring, and early fall. So boy, are we smack dab in the middle of the season now. And once again, I'll just remind you that a couple of things we're involved in. Dr. Jake at the Waukene State Veterans Cemetery on Memorial Day. He and his cavalry troop always participate in that. I think it's been more than a decade that he's been doing that, maybe 12, 13 years now. And of course, take your kids to some of the memorial events that weekend. Take them to the cemeteries to meet those VFW guys and American Legion guys who are out there marking graves and conducting ceremonies. Make sure that the kids know what Memorial Day is all about. Then toward the end of the month, 1st of June, again, I'll be out at the Battle of Blackjack. If you would like me to come and speak at your event or maybe have a screening of Thoth's Dragon, just let me know. Send me an email. We'll work that out. We've got a great show for you. We'll be right back, so stay with us.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
This segment brought to you by the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center in Oakley.
It is springtime. And what does spring mean in Kansas? Well, it means babies. So aside from the obvious calving and foaling and all those things going on farms, of course, Mother Nature's babies are arriving too. So let's take a look at some of those babies that arrive in the spring, how their mothers take care of them, what that means in the whole circle of life. Hakuna Matata to you too.
Spring has sprung. The grass is green, so green it is nearly black. The wheat is thick and luxuriant. Corn is being planted. Calves, foals, lambs, and kids dot the pastures, clambering awkwardly after their mothers. Pink piglets and baby chicks, or widdies as we called them back in the hills, skitter across the barnyards. It is just the way nature intended. Babies come in the spring, when their chance of survival is greatest. The temperatures are warmer, the food sources more abundant for babies and nursing mothers, and the world is just a little easier, giving them the chance to mature before cold weather sets in. I myself am a spring baby, April 8th, and am thus optimistic and ambitious by nature. Dr. Jake, having been born in the fall when the world is slowing down, is more introspective. It takes all seasons. But alas, back to spring. Farms and ranches aren't the only places bursting with babies. The woodlands, the prairies, the marshes, and brushes all are full of life this time of year. May and June are primary deer fawning times, and we want to share some tips from the Kansas Department of Wildlife Parks and Tourism on these little critters. At birth, fawns weigh from about 6 to 9 pounds. They are essentially scentless for several days. This helps protect them from their primary predators, which include coyotes and free-roaming dogs, who are also feeding their young this time of year. Fawns remain relatively inactive for the first 3 or 4 days. The spots they are born with serve as excellent camouflage during this period. To avoid attracting predators, the doe intentionally stays away from the fawn. However, she always knows where her fawns are and returns to nurse them 4 to 6 times a day. Humans who find a fawn hidden in this way often assume the fawn is lost or has been deserted. Rarely is that the case. The doe is probably somewhere nearby, hiding from sight, and she will return to care for the fawn once the danger is past. Humans should leave these areas as soon as possible. Leave the fawn undisturbed. They should not attempt to, quote, rescue the fawn, because in all probability, the fawn does not need help. Even if the young fawn runs from its hiding place, the doe will find it. If a fawn feels that it is lost, it will call to its mother. This call is described as a bleat, and the doe will respond from a surprising distance. Fawns depend on their mother's milk until about 5 weeks of age. At 2 to 3 weeks, they begin to forage on new, tender growth vegetation such as grass, weeds, crops, and leaves. By the time a fawn is 4 months old, it's usually weaned from the doe's milk, but it may travel with the doe throughout its first winter. As the next fawning season approaches, the doe may drive grown fawns from her home range so that she may again fawn in her own territory without intrusion. Foxes, possums, coyotes, and a seeming infinite variety of birds fill the air with their insistent cries for attention. If you are in our state parks, pay extra attention for the little ones crossing the roads or adults looking for food for the brood. Spring has sprung, and there are thousands of babies as proof. Welcome to Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in Oakley, Kansas on I-70 at exit 76. I-70, after all, is America's main street, and we're right here on Main Street for you. Now that I'm an Oakley resident, I still come in almost every day, and I sit and listen to the conversations of the people around me. You know, the guys who are talking about the big elk they just bagged, or the folks who are taking their kid to college for the first time. People just traveling up and down the highway. Real people, just like you and me. And they find just what I find here, real people to serve them. There's history, there's scenery. We hope you'll stop and see us soon. Welcome to Oakley.
Kim Mannering with Hardy Insurance. Today we will talk about employee safety and work comp coverage. On your farm, do you ask your friends to come help? Are they considered employees or neighbors helping neighbors? Did you know that you can be held responsible just as if it's a work comp accident? Give me a call, we can discuss. 316-945-6733.
Ag Promo Source is a unique group of marketing specialists with one mission: help your ag business grow. Each affiliate has their own area of expertise, and they work together to bring you advice, products, and services. To get started, visit agpromosource.com. Ag Promo Source. Together we grow.
Fort Wallace was the fightingest fort in the West. Fossils, Indians, soldiers, scouts, wagons, trails, pioneers, stories. Discover the story of Fort Wallace and the people who served here, the people who fought here, the people who settled here. Wallace County, where the past is present.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center. Your stem cells, your health, your life. Our friend Marcy Penner of the Kansas Sampler Foundation reminds us that to get Kansas, you sometimes have to go out of your way to be in the realm of what was. Nice to have a big stone to give us a great reason to go there. In the 1870s, James Teter piled rocks as a marker to guide pioneers searching for the Cottonwood River. Eventually, the rocks were removed and used for construction materials. In 1954, a 16-foot tall slab of rock was erected on this hilltop in honor of Mr. Teter. Though this jagged monolith that slices the clean Flint Hills air is marked with graffiti, it's still an excellent Kansas landmark, says Marcy. The view is vintage, remote Flint Hills. Teter Rock also marks the approximate vicinity of Teterville, an oil boom town in the 1920s. At one point, there were more than 600 people in Teterville, along with 2 general stores, a school, a post office, shotgun houses for oil workers and their families. By the 1960s, everyone and nearly everything was gone. Today, you really have to use your imagination to envision such a town. A few foundations are the only remnants. You can learn more about the town at the Greenwood County Historical Museum in Eureka.
Earlier in my life, I rode bucking horses in rodeos, and my shoulders took such a beating, and that was probably the reason for having several previous surgeries on both shoulders. about a year ago, I decided that I didn't want to have another surgery. And so I contacted Kansas Regenerative Medicine, took their treatment process. It was relatively pain-free. Now, after 8 months, my shoulders have healed to the point where I think I'm probably 90 to 95% of normal. It takes a couple of months to start to see results and feel real progress. That continued to increase gradually until now at approximately 8 months. And I'm extremely pleased. I've got full range of motion. I can lift weights, I can throw, I can do a lot of things that I couldn't do without a lot of pain previously. So I'm tickled to death with the results, and I'd recommend this process to anyone.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Today, the American Angus Association is the largest breed association in the United States, and people may not know that that breed originated in the British Isles, but then was brought all the way to Kansas. This poem is entitled Birth of a Breed. It was on the 17th of May, way back in 1873, that Kansas welcomed in some cattle that would change beef history. Near the town of Victoria, out on the Kansas plains, a man named George Grant wanted to boost his cattle gains. To improve the native bloodlines and reduce the needed culls, on that day, George Grant brought in 4 Aberdeen Angus bulls. Can you imagine the sight when those beefy cattle arrived, where nothing but shorthorns or rangy longhorns had survived? It must have been a funny scene that the neighbors thought contrary when those black-hided cattle arrived out on the Kansas prairie. But when those calves were born, then the farmer's opinion moved, because the influence of those bulls made the cattle much improved. The Angus breed developed and grew for all to see. The Angus Breed Association was formed in 1883. The American Angus Auxiliary was formed in 1952, supporting youth, showing, and scholarship and all the good they do. So like when George Grant brought those bulls here in that way, Angus bulls still bring improvement in cattle herds today. And since the hungry people of the world have protein as a need, we're thankful for this immigration of the Angus breed. Happy trails.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for the grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm, so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well in their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, and we're glad to answer it and work with you.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Heinen Brothers, a fourth-generation Northeast Kansas farm family, knows how tough farming can be. Farmers helping farmers. Heinen Brothers Ag, selling and servicing crop protection products, fertilizer, anhydrous ammonia, cover crops, quality aerial and ground application. Call today to learn about our extended term financing program. 800-760-4964. HeinenBrothersAg.com.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
A few years ago, Kansas had a fantastic exhibit about how Kansas gave Texas the boot, and it was all about the evolution of the cowboy boot. Now, of course, Texans like to claim credit for everything, but this is one where, by golly, yes ma'am, started right here in Kansas. Actually, our dear friend Jim Hollenbeck out toward Manhattan had a little bit to do with that exhibit. So let's look back at that exhibit and then a little more in teaching Texans a lesson about how Kansas gave them the boot.
Our source on this story is Kansapedia, that invaluable resource of the Kansas State Historical Society. Tradition credits Charles Heyer as one of the first to invent the cowboy boot. Company promotional materials state that a Colorado cowboy stopped by the Heyer shop on his way home from the Kansas City stockyards in 1875, requesting a new pair of boots that were different from his Civil War style boots. He wanted a boot with a pointed toe that could slide more easily into a stirrup, a high slanted heel that would hold a stirrup, and a high top with a scalloped front and back so he could get in and out of his boots more easily. Charles accepted the challenge. The unknown cowboy was so pleased with Heyer's work that he returned to Colorado and told others about his new boots. The brothers employed mostly immigrant craftsmen from Germany, Sweden, and Poland during the early years. They made cowboy boots for cattlemen, rodeo performers, and movie stars, such as Buffalo Bill Cody, Tom Mix, Will Rogers, and Gene Autry. To reach potential customers farther west and across the ocean, the company created mail-order catalogs with measuring charts. During World War I, the Heyers made boots for the officers at Fort Leavenworth and at Camp Funston. In 1961, governors from the 49 other states were outfitted with Heyer boots courtesy of Governor John Anderson. They were presented as part of the traditional exchange of gifts between governors during the annual Governors' Conference. Better opportunities for immigrants and a changing workforce meant that the Heyer Company had to adapt. As early as 1911, the Heyers lamented that fewer young people were entering shoemaking apprenticeships, which meant that they had to hire unskilled laborers and adjust the work accordingly. They were able to maintain the quality of their boots by having each worker complete one aspect of the boot-making process, as opposed to assembling a boot from start to finish. The strategy allowed the Heyer Boot Company to remain competitive for several years. In 1977, the Heyer name was sold to the Ben Miller Boot Company of El Paso, Texas. Despite the official end of approximately 100 years of bootmaking, the tradition continued at the Olathe Boot Company, which hired several former Heyer employees and purchased some of the Heyer equipment. The Olathe Boot Company was founded in 1975 and is still in operation. Today, many examples of Heyer products can be found in the Kansas Museum of History collection. In addition to Heyer boots and shoes, the collections also include patterns, last, and boot-making equipment, as well as photographs of the owners and employees.
Folks, it's been another great morning, and thank you so much for sharing it with me. And we'll see you somewhere around Kansas.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.
And red ripe tomatoes, hand-churned homemade ice cream. Let me tell you, Kansas is more than tornadoes. We're the best part